Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I am your host, Bryan O'Rourke, and welcome to 2020. There's a lot that's going to be happening this year. You're probably seeing dozens of trend reports right now. Fitness Industry Technology Council is releasing a trend report. We've just done that, or we will be shortly if you're listening to this, depending on when it was published, with some of our great board members. So I hope you take a moment to check that out. It'll be in the show notes. So happy 2020. Looking forward to seeing everyone at IRSA this March in San Diego as well. So please make a point to reach out before then. If you're making your plans, let me know. I'd love to say hello to you. Today on our podcast, we have a tremendous guy, Matthew Januszek, who you might know. He's living out in California now. Originally from the UK. And Matthew has a fantastic podcast, Escape Your Limits, both on their YouTube channel and on the podcast, of course, which I was able to be on in December, which was a lot of fun. Of course, Escape Fitness, his company, really specializes in functional equipment experiences, and Matthew gets to travel around the world talking with leaders. I highly recommend his podcast and his YouTube. They do a great job. But more than that, Matthew and I, as you'll hear in this interview, touch on how he came into the industry, trends, what's going on in tech from his view, and we just get to chat. So I look forward to your listening in on that interview. And so without further ado, let's have Matthew and we'll catch up again soon. Well, listeners, as I was telling you in the intro, I had the chance of spending time with Matthew, as he pointed out during our podcast on his podcast, which is really fantastic. Escape Your Limits, Matthew. We were in Beverly Hills just a few weeks ago, and I made you promise to join our audience today. So thanks for being here from California.
Yeah, thank you as well. It's a pleasure to be on. I know you've been going for some time now, so yeah, glad to be on and connecting with your audience.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Listen, we covered in your intro and your bio before our time here that you are a co-founder, of course, in Escape Fitness, which is really focused on functional training experiences and a number of things. Tell us how you came into the industry space. Can you share a little bit of your journey with the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I was when I was younger, many years ago. I was sort of inspired by Mr. Schwarzenegger, and always wanted to be a competitive bodybuilder. So that's really how I sort of I guess got connected to the industry. So I used to sort of watch all the people like Arnold and read all the magazines, and so as a junior, I used to hang around gyms and competed as a junior bodybuilder, and then from that did everything I could, tried to sort of open gyms and hang around people that worked and owned in gyms to try and find a way of sort of moving out of the industry I was in at the time, which was dental business, and be able to do something I was really passionate about. So the gym business was always, it was always a passion from a really young age. So I'm sort of very grateful now that's an industry and something I get to do as, for my career, really.
Yeah, that's a great background story. And now, of course, Escape itself, you do things around the world for clients in functional and otherwise. How has the business model evolved over time since you've been involved in it as a co-founder?
Well, when we started, it was dumbbells and weight plates. That was the way I used to train all those years ago, and that was the product that we started to develop and import and redistribute. And so it was funny because at the time, some of the health clubs that we were working with in England, where we started our company, one of them was Holmes Place, and I remember going in there trying to sell them dumbbells and discs, and it was at a time where they felt that using dumbbells was a little bit dangerous for people, and they were actually reducing them off the gym floor and just putting lots and lots of cardio in. So I think things have changed quite a bit in terms of what I suppose people who are operating gyms want from them and wanted their clients to where we are now, which is a very different space.
It is. It's changed quite a bit. And, as we were talking during the podcast, and I think before your podcast, when we were together, I really complimented you as a content creator. You have almost 3 million views on your Escape Fitness YouTube channel, of course, and nearly 20,000 subscribers. And you've had a real who's who of people on your show. They're very well produced content. Where did that come from? You've been doing it over 2 years. What was the nexus for you of creating this kind of content, for the company and for the industry space? What was your thinking?
Well, although it's the podcasts are relatively new for us, looking at creating digital content has been something that we've been doing for a number of years. I can't remember exactly how many years, but we used to have something called Workout of the Week, and it was probably prior to YouTube even being big. And I don't know how we used to host these videos, but we used to go around, and there was a few trainers that had been involved with us, and we used to go around recording ways that people could use our equipment and inspiring them and giving them ideas. And I think one of those was on some sort of hosting service that we used to send an email out and direct people back to. So it's been something that we've always been involved in, and mainly because I think as the industry evolves and all these great and exciting ways to work out come through, I think you tend to forget people like my mum and dad that are turning up and arriving in these places and have got no clue how to use this equipment. And I think as people within the industry, we all assume everybody else knows as much as what we do. We assume they all go to the events and the conventions and they understand this. But I think in reality, although I think the consumer is becoming a lot more educated, I think there's still a big gap from the level of knowledge that most people have, even trainers, to and in terms of how to use it. So we've always done whatever possible to help people get the most out of our equipment and get a great experience from working out.
Yeah, that's great. But in the case of, and that's cool that you understood that dynamic so early on. But in the case of the podcast, I think it's probably, the video portion as well, probably one of the most highly produced content pieces for a business like yours in the world. I think that it's really impressive to me that you've done that. Is there anything that you didn't realize? Because it's been 2 years of hard work doing that. What have you learned about that? Was there anything that surprised you about that?
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to get involved in it. It must have been one of those bright idea moments, and then you think, "Damn, what have I agreed to?" But we made a decision to do it for 2 years originally, and my I suppose personal inspiration was to be able to give my sort of younger version of myself some ideas and inspiration and hope for anyone that's looking to start out in the fitness and business world. Because when you start out, you don't really have a clue. You've never really seen anybody that's been there before, and you don't have people that will sort of tell you it's going to be okay, just do this and keep working or follow these steps and you'll be fine. So it's really, I was fortunate to get to meet lots of people in terms of what my role is and be able to ask them lots of questions. And there's been some great people and very successful people in the industry, but most of those people had made tons of mistakes on the way. So I just really wanted to be able to capture some of that information that I used to talk about when I'd sit down with people over a beer or a coffee and share that with others. And when we did it, as we do with most of the things in Escape, we just wanted to create a premium piece of content. So we did what, we sort of tried to film it, because we felt that, as well as hearing what people say, if we could sort of show inside a lot of these facilities that we were going into and people were meeting, it would give people an opportunity to sort of see what's going on around the world of fitness. So that was very much the idea when we started it. It turned out to be a lot more difficult, I think, than what we imagined, but we've got a very talented team of people that sort of managed to solve a lot of those different challenges as we went along.
Yeah, well, it's well done. It's really well done. I really enjoyed. And by the way, the audience will see in the show notes, et cetera, we have links to the content. It's very well done. I highly recommend it. So we talked a little bit about tech. We got more into the discussion of trust and the implications on it in our podcast recently that you were kind enough to have me on your show. You've been in the industry for a long time. You see the top boutique and different types of bricks and mortar fitness facilities out there around the world. When it comes to technology, in your world and what you deal with on an ongoing basis, give us your perspective. I mean, we in recent times, what are you seeing? What are customers talking about? What is your viewpoint on tech and how it's impacted the space?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because when you talk about tech, it's a big word, isn't it? Really, it's a huge subject. It's like we had a similar discussion. I think I asked you a question about the fitness industry, and you said, well, it depends on how you define it. And I think tech, there's so many different things. When I originally think of tech, I'm probably a non-tech savvy person. I don't think I don't see myself as a person who gets too involved in it. But then when I look at what we actually do as a company, and even my fitness experience, where I didn't think it was very linked to tech, I'm always using MyZone as an example, and I'm tracking and I'm competing with people, and we're sharing information and things like that. So I suppose it's like I say, I suppose it's a very, very, very big subject, and certainly one of the things that we tend to look at in this area is about information. And if you think about the world of fitness, and not necessarily people that we tend to interact with within the industry, because it's a very small industry and we're a small group, and we go to all the same sort of shows and events, and we tend to learn off each other. But when you expand this out to the millions and millions of people that want to get involved in any type of fitness or wellness, it's very difficult to really to navigate through it. It's very difficult to understand what to eat, where to go, how to exercise, and I think a lot of that communication can end up being very, very narrow. You get one sort of narrow view on what health and fitness wellness should be, and everybody thinks, well, I'm either part of the crew or I'm not part of the crew, and that tends to be people's experience of health and fitness and how technology sort of gets involved. So I think one of the great things is the ability to try and talk to lots of different people about how fitness can impact their lives using technology in quite a smart way. And I think part of that can be how you actually communicate and have your own personal window to the world. So the great things about podcasts and social media platforms is you could kind of meet someone who's similar to you and learn and try and get I guess an honest view from that perspective. And the other thing that I think is great, and I think you'll continue to see more and more information is to be able to not just track your own personal information, but I guess get a lot more personal information about you and your body and where you are, not just from your heart rate, but different measurements and markers that you can use. Am I getting enough sleep and rest? And am I able to train now? And is the food I'm eating correct for me? And I'm, just getting some real first-hand information about how your body is performing and what to do, I think is also pretty interesting. Something I think, there's a huge amount of opportunities there, really.
I agree. And do you, working with different people, what do you see with the podcast? You've talked about tech a number of times on various podcasts that you've produced. You're out there in the marketplace. I mean, do you hear any themes from operators around tech, or do you think that there's just as you were pointing out earlier, just a whole barrage of different perspectives? Is there a confusion? Is there certainty about what this means today, depending on the operator? Is there any commonality on the dialogue around tech with operators today?
Yeah, I think one of the things I hear a lot is people trying to get better understanding about their customers and who they are, what they're doing, how to best serve them, how to keep them coming back. But I suppose on the same, on the sort of same, how do I explain it? Just in the same way as people want more information, I think you can also have too much information, and it's how to deal with all this masses of information that's coming into people, and what can you do with it? We've just an example. We've just spent a huge amount of money implementing a system into our business, a Microsoft system into our business, and it's fantastic because we can get so much information now that we couldn't do very, very quickly. But it's what do you do with that, and what are the key pieces of information that we should be using within our business, and how can other people interact with it on an easy way in order to make us better and to serve our customers better. So I think that's one of the challenges, is just so much information there, whether it's just learning a bit about what's happening in your market. So I think as a business owner, you want to stay on top of what's going on within your industry or within a specific channel. So it's how do you, where do you go to start on that front? And then secondly, the information that you're getting back from hundreds of thousands of your clients, and then how can you use that in the business? So I think technology is great. It does so much. I think we've all got loads of different apps and pieces of technology to do things, but are we, what are we doing with it? And are we able to simplify that information to be successful at whether it's personally or whether it's, in terms of owning a business? I don't know what you think about that, Bryan.
No, I think you're right. I think, and it takes great wisdom to understand what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to, or conversely, as you're pointing out, how you orchestrate all that stuff in a way that is meaningful. Because there's a lot of different important things. What is most important, what's not, or what points are sitting out that may not be connected in an obvious way that if you did connect them together, you would learn things you could never learn otherwise. So that is very challenging. I think making the complex with tech simple is certainly the magic bullet, but very hard to figure out how to do that well, right?
And even if you think of something as simple as marketing, at the moment, as a marketeer or a business owner, you've got your traditional ways of marketing, and then you've got your new ways of marketing, and then if you try and provide a high level breakdown to your board that may not be into some of these ways of growing your business, you can just have sheets of different metrics about what's happening, and then again, a lot of the people that are trying to analyze them, is this good, and should I be measuring this or something else? And in truth, most people don't fully understand anyway what we should measure, and is this positive, and should I be putting money into anywhere? So I think you're right, as a business owner, leader, manager, it's really being I suppose informed as to how to best use tech in your business. What are those 3 or 4 things that are going to have the biggest difference? And then just get better at using them, and maybe, I suppose, evolve those and take one out and put a new one in. But sometimes business can end up being, you can complicate things, even though technology is meant to simplify things if you're not careful, I think.
Yeah, and then we talk about it in our marketing group, there's quants, they're all quantifications. And the reality is in a lot of business, like we talked about a few weeks back, that can't be the only metric, because you can really, really get in a lot of trouble being driven purely by quant. You could be making decisions that you think numbers are showing you without accounting for a lot of other things that numbers can't show you. And we talked about that in the realm of trust during our podcast time together. And really, there's these things that are not really measurable in the near term. So people can get in a lot of trouble if they're purely going off of data without context. So it can be very dangerous to draw any singular conclusions from tech or data alone. You could really get in a lot of trouble,
And also you've got to be careful as well about throwing, I guess I don't know whether you use it here, but throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Is everybody's talking about new technology and new marketing technology, and you've got these new people that just specialize in this, or almost as though business is no longer what it used to be. It's business is totally new. It's this new world, and I think it's like putting together a board of directors. You need a real mix. You need your real traditional people that are still doing that traditional stuff, because in some cases it works. I had a discussion with someone recently about just leaflet drops. It does work. You're out there, you're talking to people. If you've got a good system to measure it, then why get rid of it? Just because everybody's doing Facebook and digital advertising. And I think it applies to all different areas of the business. If you look at bricks and mortar retail and digital, just because people are spending so much more money online, it doesn't mean there's not a really good place for a great bricks and mortar experience. Hence people like Amazon opening bookstores again after they just destroyed the high street. So I think as I've gone on in business, I think you kind of have to, just like a good diet, it's not like you have to get rid of all your carbs and that's the magic diet. I think you've got to have a real balance in both your nutrition, your workout, and also business, and probably not going to too many extremes before you really understand how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think that's wisdom. It's hard to know. You break through the noise, because you're right. A lot of people are very evangelical on tech or what the latest thing is, and it's a silver bullet, and nothing in the long run is a silver bullet.
Right.
That's wisdom.
And you see these. I know you spoke about these unicorns, I think, in our podcast, and I think the same things applies. If you're not careful, you read the highlights and the news stories, and it's like, okay, look, this is it. We need to totally get rid of that business model, because this is the way things are going. And you're right, there are definitely some things in that are worth paying attention to, but it's how you can sort of balance that with what you're doing and evolve things, and I guess that's an art in itself. I suppose
it's perspective. Like we talked about, that's the benefit of getting a little older and having time kind of go by, because it gives you some perspective. Well, Matthew, what are you seeing? Any other final insights on what do you see in the future? I mean, what is your view in the future as it pertains to tech or the industry in general? What are your thoughts on what we're going to see in the next number of years, since it's going to be 2020 now when this gets released, and everyone's going to be telling everybody what they think is coming? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the good thing is there's a lot of very exciting things happening in the space. I think it's a great place to be at the moment. We chatted about it last time. It's not. You're not going to get bored. That's for certain. But I think one of the things I'm seeing from my perspective is how different parts of the traditional fitness industry are coming together. So I never used to think of myself as someone who used to that works out at home. But when I actually look at the amount of workouts I do in a facility and the ones I do at home or around where I work, or if I'm short of time, then I probably do work out at home a lot more than what I thought. Mainly because of the travel and just wanting to get a workout in with a really busy life. And so one of the things I think will start happening is the convergence of different places where people exercise and train. So I think you'll have the corporate side. I think that's one area where people either travel to work or they're working from home, and there'll be some sort of destination there. I think traditional home fitness, I think that's going to be an interesting area that will overlap and converge with this, people working out at home. And then I think there's the traditional gym and fitness space, and I can see opportunities of where a lot of those will sort of come together, whether it's a new player in the space that will suddenly deal with all those three different areas, or whether it will be existing players that will start to identify how to connect with people in different areas. But I think at the moment, if you want your home workout, then with the odd exception, you'll go to a particular brand and you'll get that experience. If you want to go into a gym, you will do that, and the same for your place of work. But I do think in terms of content and the experience and tracking and information, I do think that there's a lot of opportunities of bringing that together. And certainly if you look at some of the things that Apple are doing, where regardless of where you're having your exercise or your fitness experience, you're always connected with them. They're the one consistent in that. And I think there's probably some interesting opportunities for some other brands to be that person that comes with you wherever you are, on holiday, at home, in your workplace, or inside some sort of fitness facility. So I think that will be a very interesting area, and it's one that we're certainly keeping an eye on, and be sort of curious to see how you can play a part in what happens in there, because I think certainly see that space coming together a lot more than what it is at the moment.
Yeah, I do too. I see that coming together. I see also, as we talked about, disparate aspects of health starting to be connected more readily in new models as well. So you'll have the home anywhere, wherever you are, connectivity around experience for fitness. And then I think, as we spoke about, you're going to see those same things connect with its fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, rest, all these different things that used to be kind of in their own silos starting to be connected as well, giving you, like as you referred to earlier, just a lot more context behind your human performance and how to optimize your health, because it's not just about fitness.
No, and it'll be interesting to see how that happens, because you've got the big companies, the Facebooks and the Googles and the Apples, that have all this information on you, what you're doing and how you're feeling and when you're sleeping. The information that these guys have seems to make it obvious that they're going to play an important part. But then what happens to the other businesses? Is it a case of you sort of, and the Amazons as well, the other one, but do you sort of do you sort of build yourself on the top of one of their platforms and create something, or do you think about trying to create some sort of platform yourself where you aggregate all this data that other people have? So I think it's going to be interesting, and even on a simple level, the level of information that people can get on you is pretty amazing as it is, but there doesn't seem to be any place you could go to put all that together and then to advise you on what you should do for yourself. That's right. And even if you think about some of these apps where you can book your restaurants and you can order your food, so that there is going to be the ability for somebody to know every bit about what you're buying and what goes into your body. So it's going to be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be quite interesting indeed. But I think you're right. I think that's exactly what the next decade is going to hold, and who knows what it's going to come out and really look like. I think the outputs will be what we're describing, but exactly how that's going to happen and be monetized is yet to be determined. So it's going to be a good time ahead. Any final thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to jump on, but I do think that I do think that there's this sort of this balance as well. I think in everything, when things go in one direction, you always get this opposite starting to develop, and as we talked about trust recently, and people are less connected than ever. Their relationships are not great, even though people feel as though a lot of their relationships are happening on here, and in some cases they are. But I think that need for personal connection and community, I think, is also going to play a key part. So it's having this high amount of information and measurement and technology in your lives, but then this opposite that people are going to sort of naturally, and part of their instincts are going to be drawn to, and it's how those two come together, I think, which is going to be interesting, because I certainly don't believe you'll go into this sort of pod or have this robot that everything's totally digital and robotic. I think there's going to be this big human part which we've sort of not really yet started to get into and understand. Probably even some of the consequences of not having that in our lives enough.
Yeah, there are going to be no doubt unintended consequences of that, and I agree with you. What will be human will become more and more valuable. I do think you're going to have robots. I think that's a real thing. I think they'll serve certain purposes, but I think you're right. I think when it comes to delivering meaning and value, it's those human interactions that will be the most valuable. I think your insights are spot on. Any other final thoughts for our listeners, Matthew? Anything else? Any insight that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think those are the main things. We're as I said, it's certainly an extremely interesting time. Business world is going through so many changes at the moment, and I think the industry as well that we're all, I guess, in is going to be sort of interesting. And so I suppose as I go into next year, it's about sort of keeping an open mind. If you're not careful, you can sort of you can become quite old and not realizing it. And I suppose in a business sense, your business, we've been going 21 years now, and it's amazing how our customers change and the industry changes. And if you're not careful and not open to new ideas, you could suddenly see yourself as a bit of a dinosaur. And I think with the world as it is and technology, you've got to find some way of just staying open and connected to all different parts of what goes on, and sort of work out what information to pay attention to and what not to, so that you can make sure that you're still going to be relevant.
Yes. That understanding that it takes some effort, and I think that's very wise for you to say, to keep your mind open and don't try to jump to any conclusions, because we know things are going to change. Sometimes they change less than you think they have on certain things, and sometimes more than you realize they did. So I think that's great wisdom. Matthew, thank you so much. And thank you for all you do and sharing your fantastic content and spending time with our listeners. We're very grateful, and I wish you, your company, your family, all the best in 2020. Sure do appreciate you sharing your insights.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. You too. I think you're doing a great job with your podcast and everything you're doing within the industry, and your positivism. Is that a word?
I think it is.
I'm not sure, but
well, if it isn't, we invented it.
Is it we got? Yeah. So thank you very much.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, brianko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.